everyone. This is to work a couple sample problems from your text that are at the pre-calc level involving inputs with variables. If you stay organized, they're really not that difficult, but do stay organized. Really what we're using is the same thing. If we want the average rate of change, that's what this is asking for. What we're asking for is the slope, right? And so slope is the change in y, which in this case is going to be the change in my f of x over my change in x, okay? So the way I tend to like to do these is think of them the way I would have maybe done it in Algebra 1, which is set up a little easy table, okay? That if I have an input of x, right, okay, then I have an output of f of x, which in this case is, this is my function right here, okay? So I'm going to take the first input of 1. I'm going to put 1 in my function. 4 minus 1 squared, that's just going to give me 3. So that's easy enough. You've been doing those already. This one's a little bit more work, okay? If I put in a 1 plus an h, then I have 4 minus 1 plus h, the quantity squared. There is now my input. I'm going to continue to expand this. 4 minus, I'm going to use my perfect square trinomial pattern. Okay. So 1 squared, multiply and double, square the last term, and then I'm going to keep going. I'm going to subtract, which means change every sign. And then finally, I'm going to combine my like terms, and I'm going to get 3 minus 2h minus h squared. Okay, so this is the output for this input. Okay, now I'm looking for change in my function, so it's the change in these two values, right, over the change in these two values, the x values. And I can go any direction I want. I could go from here to here, from here to here, or vice versa. I think rather than subtracting negatives, I might start with this one and go forward. So I'm going to do 3 minus 2h minus h squared, that's one of my f of x's, subtract the other f of x, over 1 plus h, that's the one that corresponds to this one, minus 1. And of course, the 3's are going to cancel here, right? The 1's are going to cancel here. And I also notice I have a common factor of an h, okay? So m is going to equal negative 2 divided by h is just negative 2, okay? Negative h squared divided by h is just negative h. And right there is my average rate of change, okay? Cleaned up quite nicely, all right? I'm going to do one more. This is the second example I'm working, number 18 on page 177. And again, what I have is a variable input, okay? So I'm going to consider maybe go ahead and using the little formula version for this one with the variable. Sometimes I might do that rather than a table. But I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to have the f of h, right, minus the f of 0, okay, so that's the f of these over h minus 0. So this is, say, taking the output minus the output over the input minus the input, and just making sure, if you notice, I'm matching these up, okay? All right. Well, denominator's basically done here already, but let's look at the f of h, okay? And this is where you do need to be a little bit careful, okay? But if I'm only putting in a variable, it's not too bad. This is going to be 2 over h plus 1, just putting in an h for an x, okay? Minus the f of 0, put a 0 in, I just get a 2, all right? And all of that is going to be over h minus 0, which is going to be over h, all right? Now, I'm going to use my 1.4 skills here, okay? And I'm going to multiply top and bottom by h plus 1 in order to get that common denominator, right? Okay, so I'm going to end up with 2 minus, I'm actually going to distribute a negative 2 here. Negative 2 times h minus 2. Being careful with that negative. I also could have said minus 2 that in parentheses, but I'm going to actually do it this way. Okay? And this is all over h plus 1. And instead of writing this as divide by h, I'm going to write it as multiply by 1 over h. Division by h is the same as multiplication by the reciprocal, and it gets rid of my double fractions. Okay? All right? See if you can follow me along with this. All right. Well, hopefully it's pretty clear at the moment, right, that I do have a simplification up here. This is 2 minus 2. So I have negative 2h over h plus 1, all right? And here, I could also do the multiplication out, or I could recognize I have a cross cancellation that I can do here between the h's, right? Since I'm another way, I'm going to go ahead and write it out so it might be a little easier to see. I've got 2h over h plus 1 times 1 over h. I can cancel my h's. So my final answer is just going to be negative 2 over h plus 1. Okay, so that's going to be the result of these inputs. This is my average rate of change, okay? This is actually using the arc formula, which is just the slope formula, all right?